IVM.
Hi, I'm Rohan Joshi, and on my podcast, the show about crypto, I've been having some pretty cool conversations with industry experts about what exactly cryptocurrency is and what makes it so exciting. If you haven't already, please check it out on the IVM Podcasts Network. Now, a quick shout out to my fellow crypto heads. We've got a listener survey going on, which will take not more than 10 minutes of your time to fill out. So please check the link in the description and help me out by filling it up. Don't forget to tune into a show about crypto on the IVM app and wherever you get your podcasts from.
This is Storytellers and Storytellers live on tape. You're listening to me, Vineet, on the IVM Podcast Network. Every episode on this podcast, we talk to leading light from the world of entertainment. Sometimes we talk to people from music. Sometimes we talk to writers. Sometimes we talk to people who are running drone companies. And sometimes we talk to people who are making toys and in AR, like the previous episode. On this episode, I am very, very excited to be joined by Nikkhil Advani, someone that has been instrumental in the stories that I have consumed growing up as well. Big fan of the work. And someone who's got a big new web series coming out. The Rocket Boys comes out on Sony Live, I think. Sony Live, yeah. Nikhil, welcome to the show. Storytellers, welcome to you. So glad you joined us on this episode. So glad at this opportunity to pick your brains about things.
Thank you, Vineet. Really excited to be chatting with you. Drone operators, wow, superb.
Yeah, I'm
going to listen to that episode.
Please do. I had Rahil Kulshresht, who is the head of the Drone Federation of India and also obviously producing a lot of drone content, talk about his expertise. That was a fun episode. But this will be a fun episode as well. We're talking Rocket Boys. I'm an enthusiast of India's space history. I'm very excited for this show to come out. Like I was saying earlier, there's only sort of a podcast that has kept this alive, and that's got me so much more excited about.
Actually, the podcast that you're mentioning, which is Harsha Bhogle's podcast, is something that Mallika Sarabhai sent to me to listen also.
Right.
She basically said and she sent it just recently to me. I think that when we were Dr. Sarabhai passed, his death anniversary is on the 31st of December.
Right.
And she sent it to me. I think Harsha did something on that at that point.
Beautiful podcast, 2 seasons long, very detailed in its history. But the point I was driving at is such a wonderful story of accomplishment, of science, of progress, of towering personalities having an influence on culture and science and development. But at its heart, when you put the web series together, what is it all about? What is Rocket Boys all about from the horse's mouth?
Yeah, the thing is that Vineet, I've been telling people, I've been doing interviews for the promotion. So first of all, I should just take the opportunity to clarify that. Yes, I've been credited as the creator of the show. I think my biggest contribution is possibly bringing the most important Rocket Boy into the show, which is Abhay Pannu, who is the writer director of the show.
Right.
And he's also a science geek like me, possibly like you. He's an engineer from Punjab. And he's a film enthusiast. He worked with me as an associate director on Mumbai Diaries last year, or year before last. And so, I think that ideally speaking, he should be the one having this conversation, but he's still busy giving the final touches to the show. But so I'm just saying that from the various interviews that I've done, the most important thing that I have tried to clarify is that while, yes, it deals with the father of atomic energy, there's Dr. Bhabha, and it deals with the father of space research in India, that's Dr. Sarabhai. If you're going to watch the show only for space and only for atoms and molecules and compounds and elements, you're going to be sadly mistaken. It's not a documentary on science, right? The interesting thing that when we started doing the research, first of all, I had no clue that Dr. Bhabha and Dr. Sarabhai knew each other. I knew that I read a lot about Dr. Sarabhai. I hardly read about Dr. Bhabha. If you live in the city of Mumbai, you can't help but pass some building in South Bombay which does not have the Bhabha name. It's synonymous with there are families that are synonymous with philanthropy and art and culture. And
absolutely,
Dr. Bhabha's really his entire estate has been built to the National Center of Performing Arts, the NCPA. So the more we read about them, the more it occurred to us was that A, that they knew each other, B, that they supported each other. One was 7 years older than the other. There was like a mentor-guru kind of relationship they had. One was the best man in the other person's wedding. In fact, Dr. Bhabha convinced Mrinalini Sarabhai to get married to Vikram Sarabhai. So they had a relationship which went beyond that.
Right.
It was familial, it was brotherhood. They were both from Cambridge, so they were elitists in that sense. They had they were very proud of being both from Cambridge. They looked down upon any other college, even it was Oxford or Harvard for that matter. They while one was more comfortable with Indian culture and Indian
Mhm.
music and Indian art of the time, the other was a more global personality in the
Right.
case of Dr. Bhabha.
Right.
So all those things basically really stood out for us as characters whose story needs to be based.
Mhm.
But the most important thing that actually stood out for us was that while they had so many things in common, one thing that they differed on was the way nuclear energy should be used. Well,
Absolutely.
Dr. Bhabha was convinced that India post independence was going to have to project itself as a as a player
Right.
in the global thing, and as
As
a
a
result,
nuclear power.
as a, well, nuclear was very far from there at that time. It was just as some kind of defense kind of thing, right?
Right.
Vikram Sarabhai was more of a pacifist and more of a Gandhian. His father, Ambalal Sarabhai, was very close to Mahatma Gandhi.
Right.
So they differed on that, and actually, so you're like, out of the blue came as for a filmmaker and a storyteller, you have this great ingredient of brotherhood, and here you have then and you have dilemma and you have conflict. So it just fell into place for us. Yeah.
Beautiful. I think that's a great introduction to what the show is about. And I'm so glad that you're going beyond making a sort of factual documentary of what really happened. And we've seen a very recent example of that, right? Like a recreation of what happened in the sporting field put out as a period film, and that didn't seem to work very well. I love the fact that you're focusing so much or focusing squarely on their similarities and differences, their relationship, the mentor mentee thing. Again, kind of gives me Nehru Gandhi vibes in they're united in their
Yeah,
objective,
absolutely.
different in their
Yeah,
approach.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's where I mean it's so interesting because I mean the show is called Rocket Boys, and so and while you read more about it just became that what Sarabhai was to Homi Bhabha,
Hmm.
Kalam became to Sarabhai. So like
Absolutely.
the baton gets passed on.
Right.
you know. So
Love
actually, so it was right for the picking, yeah, for us. In fact, I mean, when Siddharth Rai Kapoor approached me to do the show, I was like, I mean, come on, who's going to be watching the show about these, stodgy
Right.
scientists?
Right.
And then you read it, and then you realize that it's not about stodgy scientists. So here, literally, and so I mean, if you read about Dr. Sarabhai, and we met up with the family, we spoke to the family, they helped us, they gave us so many incidents. So he was, I mean, when his house, when he moved to the IISc after, because his education in Cambridge was cut short by the war, and
Mhm.
he moved back to Ahmedabad, and depression, and he wanted to go back, and he couldn't go back, and father used some influence and got him an interview with C.V. Raman, and boom, he goes to IISc. His house is bigger than C.V. Raman's house.
Right.
He has a convertible car. He has a butler or a valet that comes with him, right?
Right.
So we are talking about. So you know what? The other interesting thing for me, Vineet, was that whenever we talk about stories of so-called independence in India, we are always talking about Vande Mataram and
The
Jana Jana
struggle of
Mana and
nationalism.
and
Yeah.
and the freedom struggle and all. Here you have these guys in dinner jackets, and you have
Right.
these guys in convertible cars, and you have these guys, with who are boys,
Mhm.
who are young men with seeing women,
Right.
and going to parties, and at the same time being extremely involved in the nationalist movement at that time, in the freedom struggle at that time, doing their bit, and at the same time understanding that that India was at the cusp of something very great, you
Right.
know, and we need to use the opportunity to fulfill our dreams, and those dreams are going to take India forward. So
Right.
yes, so they had these convertible cars and they had all these things in place, but they were very focused in what they wanted to do, right? I mean, like I said, I mean, it was right for the picking for us, and we are very glad that we managed to do this, do it well. Full marks to Sony Dev to allow us to do it the way we wanted to do.
I think it's a very promising trailer that I've seen. Obviously, I know some of the backstory, so I know the potency of it. Let me ask you this, Nikhil. Now, often when putting this out, right, especially when you're taking a sort of personality or a relationship take on common shared history, research becomes very important, right? What was the person like? What was the relationship like? They might have documented stuff to each other in letters, but how did conversations happen? What was the exact moment like? Requires a lot of sort of soft research as well, right? It's not just about going over documentary or reading a Wikipedia page and stuff like that, right? You need to form a connection with the family, get them to trust you as well. How was that process like when you were doing this?
Yeah, so I think that the first thing that happened was when Siddharth Roy Kapoor approached me with Avi. Of course, we said we can't do this without. There's no point of doing this by saying that let's change Vikram Sarabhai into Vijay,
Right.
whatever something. We have to take the names. Right? We have to be able to take the names. So the first thing was to basically find out who can we go and speak with and who can we basically get permission for. Right? I mean, books have been written and articles have been written and blogs have been written and there are, like you said, letters, videos, the films have been made about these two gentlemen. So how do we meet the experts? So what immediately happened was that we realized that Mallika Sarabhai, very renowned dance and cultural performer,
Right.
and we can go and meet up with her. Sarabhai family, very well known family in Ahmedabad, in Gujarat. So we went up, we called her, we made an appointment, we went and met her. She and her brother Kartikeya Sarabhai. Kartikeya is the older brother, and
Right.
her son Devanta Sarabhai. They met up with us, and of course they had lots of questions: what we were going to do and what we were not going to do. So the interesting thing is that while I think that they have over the years come to some kind of understanding that Vikram Sarabhai is a public figure, and people are going to have written things about him. Factual and fictional things stuff have been written about Vikram Sarabhai. Here we were not asking only about Vikram Sarabhai. We were asking about Minali Sarabhai. We were asking about Mallika Sarabhai. We were asking about Kartikeya Sarabhai. We were asking about Vikram Sarabhai's father and his mother Sadla. So they realized that we are not interested only to talk about rockets. We are not interested only in talking about space. We are not interested only talking about his scientific achievements.
Mm-hmm.
We want to talk about family. So that really basically made them say, oh.
Canvas is bigger.
Yeah. No. Also that now that means that means can we trust these guys?
Right.
Right? Can we trust these guys? And also I think that while we have all applauded the achievements of Dr. Sarabhai, Mrinalini Sarabhai in her own way was a path breaker. Right? She was. I mean, at a time when women of such renowned families would not dance on stage, she chose to break that taboo and come onto stage and dance on stage and not only dance on stage but talk about stuff like dowry and female infanticide and villages and Dalits and caste through her messaging, through her dance. So are we going to talk about that? Are we going to? So that was actually a very delicate conversation with Mallika Sarabhai and Kartikeya Sarabhai. What are you going to do with Amma? So I think that two things worked for us actually. One was the fact that we had done films like Airlift, and I had just done Butler House. And I had done films which were considered to be biopics, which had been viewed by not only critics, not only public, but critics as well. That wow, there's a certain level of authenticity and responsibility that I think that is the reason why even State possibly made the call to me. Right. So I think that was the first thing. And the second thing is, this is funny, is I realized that I'm going to need some kind of help to push the Sarabhai into agreement. So I called up a friend of mine. His name is Shad Ali, who's a filmmaker, and Shad's grandmother and Mrinalini Sarabhai, a sister.
Oh wow!
So yeah, and I said, boss, make a call for me. Explain to them that I'm not going to screw it up. So yeah,
that's gold, man. That's gold. Like the right connection at the right time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. That's just beautiful. I know. I mean, the Sarabhai is obviously super prominent family in Ahmedabad. I spent a few years living there as well. I mean, their footprint is all over the city, right? Where there is a space center or it's Natrani. Obviously, the Bhabhas, although are slightly different from them, right? While their footprint is also all over Bombay and I mean almost outside Bombay as well, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
And from what the trailer seems, there is a sort of slightly different treatment to Dr. Bhabha in the show. Or am I just taking the bait from that you've left in the trailer and thinking?
No, you're not. You're actually. So I think that one thing that stood out for us in the research. So of course, when you see a lot of films and you read a lot of the letters and the writings of Dr. Bhabha, he comes across as a very, very, how do I put it, very, very erudite scholar, kind of,
Right.
Saying the right thing, speaking the right way, using the right grammar. But the thing that actually lots of people who knew about him and knew him, we did not have the same comfort that we had with Sarabhai, primarily because he has no next of kin. His brother
Sure.
and his brother's family also have all passed away. We contacted far off relatives, far off cousins, and nieces and nephews who are there, but they had never met him.
Right.
So what we were, this thing was with the TIFR archives, people who had possibly, old professors who had worked under him. The one thing that they said was that he was self-deprecating and he had a great sense of humor.
Right.
Right? So I think that what Abhay and then Jim decided to do was that. So the interesting thing, Vineet, is that we gave Abhay and Ishwak and Regina a lot of material to read on the Sarabhais as well as Homi Bhabha, and we made the Sarabhais, we gave them stuff to read, consume. They consumed a lot of stuff. And then what we did is we told them to forget it.
Right.
You got to forget everything, primarily because in 1942, neither did Dr. Sarabhai know that he's going to be the great Dr. Sarabhai, nor did Dr. Homi Bhabha know that he's going to become the great Homi Bhabha.
Right.
They are just young men who are making mistakes, who are living some dreams, and who are trying their best to get to they're doing jugaad, right? So the brilliant thing about Rocket Boys, when you see it, right, it actually celebrates India's jugaad, basic jugaad. Right? It just does that. It just celebrates. You don't have the money to build a reactor, you get some. You don't have the money to send a rocket to space, you figure it out. Right? The hydraulic system is not working, you bloody use bullock carts. Right? So these are
absolutely love it. I think it's a great capture of how things were.
Did they actually use bullock carts? I don't know, but Abhay, myself, and the research team, we read that the nozzles and the rocket parts were transported in bullock carts.
That's what the legend goes. Like that's how it's done. Yeah.
So Henry Cartier-Bresson's classic photograph of two men carrying a cycle on the cycle to the nozzle of the rocket became the one photograph that we put up in the production office and said, okay, this is what we need to. This is. I mean, there's no bigger jugaad than this, right? We have a nozzle of a rocket on the back of a cycle. Right?
Absolutely.
So that really became the thing. And so I think what Jim has chosen to do is, because of the fact that his wings were not so clipped by fact.
Right.
He has interpreted it a little more freely. I would say.
Sure. I love it. Absolutely. I mean, that sounds like a riot to bring to life. It obviously sounds like a great process that here cram everything and then forget about it, because you have to bring alive the person, not the hagiography in that sense, right?
Absolutely. So I read somewhere about the Crown, and which is based on Queen Elizabeth's life, and the writer said that if he really had put down her life, I mean, it would be the most boring show ever.
Right.
So they created Crown. They created beats and moments. Yeah, that's what we've done also. Yeah.
Love it. I'm going to take a quick break. On the other side of this, we will talk to Nikhil about the revival of sort of modern Indian history stories, both from a larger storytelling canvas perspective and what Nikhil's take on it is as well. Back on Storytellers and Storysellers right after these messages.
$100. That's all it takes to begin your journey with Bitcoin and Ethereum. No, really. With CoinSwitch, you can start investing in over 100 cryptocurrencies with just 100 rupees. On top of that, there are zero charges for deposits and withdrawals, so you can trade, buy, sell, however and whenever you want. All of this, plus their extremely intuitive interface, makes CoinSwitch the perfect app for beginners in the crypto space. But don't take my word for it. Just download CoinSwitch for free and try it out for yourself. If you'd like more information on cryptocurrencies, tune into A Show About Crypto with me, Rohan Joshi, my new adventure on IVM Podcasts. CoinSwitch, kuch to badlega.
And we're back. This is Storytellers and Storysellers. We're in conversation with Nikkhil Advani. We're talking about Rocket Boys. Before the break, Nikkhil told us about what went into the research, about the process of bringing these stalwart characters to life, and the fact that they were not setting out to make a hagiography. It was a relationship between two men who are obviously very, very gifted, but came with their own personalities. Nikhil, this story that you're putting out, Sarabhai and Baba, obviously modern heroes of this country. These stories have been around since the 60s, since the 70s, but rarely has there been an effort to bring them out alive on a scale that you're doing now, right? For me as a viewer, there's an observation that there is a trend towards bringing these histories to life, whether it's in the West with shows like Hidden Figures or Imitation Game and stuff like that, or in India more recently with 83 or the bunch of stuff that we've seen as well, right? And in your personal sort of over as well, what I'm seeing is a shift from more contemporary urban to historic, right? I mean, if I may call out 1911, the next thing that you're doing is also next film that you're doing, beg your pardon, is also sort of period set. This. What's your read on this, both from an industry side, but let's start with you personally. Is there a special fascination that period films have for you now in this stage of what you're making?
No, it's not about. I don't know about. So the first thing that is that we haven't treated 1942 as period. We have treated it as 2022. So
Right.
right. So that, I mean, that's the first thing that we have done. I mean, it might sound confusing, but I mean, while yes, the period is there and the sepia is there and the costumes are there and the cars are there and the lighting and all everything. We said, "Ki boss, but they were young then and they were mustikor at that time. You know, young boys are
Right.
mustikor now. That's the
Right.
first. But I mean, as far as the comfort from my, so I'll just clarify, 1911 is something that I want to do, and it's something that John and I have been talking about doing for a long, long time. So
Mhm.
it's a football film that because both of us are huge football fanatics. You
Right.
know, he has the good fortune of being able to afford to own a club. Not that I ever want to own a club, but yeah. But shout out to Man City because I mean they are my club. So
Love it. I'm a United fan. I have nothing to say at this point.
you have nothing to say. You not have nothing anything to say for the last 4 5 years. So
Yeah,
it's that
it's good. I mean, I think United fans should get a period of peace and quiet, taste of
good.
the
Good.
diamonds.
I'm glad that you could fool yourself into believing that.
What else is there? It's like at this point it's Stockholm syndrome. But back to you, back to you.
Yeah. So yeah. So 1911 is something I want to do. The thing is that it's something that I would like to do again. There are so many beautiful moments within the 1911 match that we are talking about between the Yorkshire Regiment and the Immortal 11. Again, a story waiting to be told, right? But I mean, so whether it's LA, whether the Mumbai Diaries 2611, which now goes into season 2, whether all these kind of things, right? I think personally, or even D-Day, right? D-Day is actually where my so-called fascination with current affairs. I'm not. It's
Sure.
not. It's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years ago. But
No,
something
yeah.
happened, right? Here's the most wanted man in India. You know, why are we not being able to bring him back? And let's write story, right? So I think it's not so much about period, but it's about real life characters. It actually helps me, right? A small example: if I came to you and you're a producer, you're a studio or a platform, and I told you that, hey, no, if I tell you that, hey, I want to make a film about 10 boys who basically come in a raft at Bhadwar Park across the ocean, across the Arabian Sea, and they come in a raft and they hold the city of Mumbai ransom for 3 nights. You say, hey, it's not possible. And I said, no, it is possible because it happened in 2009. What I'm trying to say is, Vineet, is exactly that. When I started reading about these two guys, I couldn't believe the stuff. I couldn't
Right.
make it up. Right? I couldn't make up the stuff that they had done. Right? So it's there. So what I try to get to gravitate toward more is the real life story. Is the real life character? Is the biopic? Or is the can I take this particular character and not make a biopic, but can I put his life into a story? Nobody. I mean, I'll turn everything around. Right? So we are doing. So actually, the next thing that I'm doing as a producer is a
Right.
film called Mr. Chatterjee versus Norway. with Ranmukar, which is the story of the 2011 case where, the two children are taken away from this Indian immigrant mother, and
Right.
on the pretext that you do not know how to raise the children. And she
Right.
fought and she fought and she fought. And she got a country made India fight for her.
Right.
It's a fascinating case, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that yes, but you will definitely see more and more filmmakers like myself finding inspiration from events, lesser known events, lesser known heroes and people. We all feel that it's high time that the general public get to know them.
Absolutely. And I think your logic of it being inspired by real events, but also done in a dramatic way is very interesting. I think what really struck me, at least in the first part of your answer, is that you're not looking at recreating the period here, right? You're still focused on the character, the struggle, the growth, the conflict. And that's a very interesting spin on this. What I'm going to do to sort of bring this chat to a close, and what a chat it's been. Great talking to you on Rocket Boys, is go into a section called Water with Vineet. I will throw you very short, snappy questions, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about
Sure.
it. Right? So, obviously, this has nothing to do with any other talk show you have heard of. No connection to any of that. But yeah, my first question, my snap question for you was: what are some shows or films that you've been excited about in the last maybe year or so that you've watched?
I watched Tabbar. I think it's fantastic. I think the director Ajit Pal Singh is superb. I actually there is this great show. I mean, the World War II things which are on Netflix, which are now in color. So I'm a huge World War II freak, fanatic, geek, whatever it is. I mean, I read a lot about Winston Churchill. I know he was quite horrible to Indians, but
Right.
he was a great commander, and he won the war basically for the Allies. So I've been watching that. Mayor of Easttown is something that I found fascinating. The way the pace of the show was just superb.
Great
Uh,
performances in that one as well.
Great performance, great. I mean, it's a courageous show, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
from everybody, whether it's the director, whether it's the writer, whether it's the actors, it's just superb. I've been really, I've been really caught up with Empire and Mumbai Diaries and Rocket One.
Because I'm sure, I'm 100%.
Yeah,
I'm sure, but we're also in this age of TV that it's or age of entertainment is very hard not to ask someone what they're binging right now. So I
yeah,
thought
but the
I'll
thing
take
is that
my chance.
I'm still somewhat of a purist, so I don't like to watch on my phone and my iPad. I need to get back home and put on the television and watch it on the television. I think that
Oh,
I owe it
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
much to the maker.
I think the only thing I can watch on my phone without feeling bad about it are live matches. Because I know that I'm out somewhere and I can't watch it.
Yeah,
That's
so
the only thing I
that's the
have.
thing. The football is like this is all consuming. Yeah. So
Yeah,
now
really
that it's
is.
all back. So, yeah.
It really is. Let me ask you my next question about football. Right? Do you think there's too much money in football?
Yes, there is too much money in football, but a lot of fun. And I just saw that the Neymar documentary on Netflix.
Right.
Unbelievable. I mean, what a player, but what a character, and has he been really been misunderstood? Is he really a horrible person? It's just fantastic. It really leaves it answers so many questions, but also it leaves so many questions for you to. Yes, so there is a lot of money, and the clubs are just pouring it. And when is it going to stop? Right, 222 million euros to now Messi comes to PSG and now I mean, Ronaldo was in Man United, but obviously he's already crying and saying, when am I going to go back? And
Yeah.
yeah.
We're not going to talk about United at all. But would you like to make something like that? Again, I know very different from what it might be, but something like the Neymar doc, because a lot of sport documentary is the next big thing with OTT. Do you see yourself being part of one of those?
No, yeah, I don't know how to do it. I don't have the
Right.
patience. I think that when you do a documentary, I think the most important person of a documentary is actually the editor and the editing
Right.
process. And although I owe a lot of my filmmaking to the couple of years that I had the opportunity of working with Renu Saluja, I have very little patience in the editing
Right.
process. So yeah.
Right. Super self-aware as expected. Last question to you is, what is your expectation out of Rocket Boys? What do you expect people to say? What do you expect the impact to be? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm hoping that my daughter who's 15 and her friends enjoy it, because I mean I feel that as a generation you cannot have only cricketers and Bollywood actors as heroes, right? So I'm hoping I think that I've actually the Vineet, I've already got a lot of my satisfaction from just the trailer, because so many people went looked up Google and said, hey, we did not know about these people, yeah, are they
Right.
real and whatever,
Right.
and we started checking up on things, about all these things. So yeah, so I'm thinking the nationalist in the Indian nationalist has got excited because they saw Abdul Kalam in the last frame. And they, oh wow, there's Abdul Kalam also, and the others, and the so-called neutral audiences have been googling these guys. So yeah, I think that what we set out to achieve, we've started. Let's hope that we can. Yeah.
I love it, absolutely. And I hope that your attempt at bringing this very vital piece of modern Indian history to the screen, to more people, has the effect of instilling the right kind of nationalist pride. I think that's my hope, right? Because we share so much more than what gets discussed up every day, right? And these kind of stories, I think, go such a long way in sort of restating or pulling some of that social fabric together. So I'm fanboying already. I hope you and the team see massive success on this show. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Storytellers. Nikkhil Advani, absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.
And learning from your insights. That's it on this episode of Storytellers and Storysellers. This was me, Vineet Kanabar. Before I say goodbye, if you like this episode, tell us at IVM Podcast or at Ashcharya Fuck It. You can let us know if you like this episode or you didn't like it. If you think we should get someone else to talk about something that you're interested in, let us know on social media. That's very important. You can also go and rate this podcast, whether you listen to it on Apple or Spotify or on the IBM app. That's it. This is me, Vineet Kanabar, saying goodbye.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet talks to filmmaker and production designer Uzair Merchant. He shares how he's created the world's first ever NFT music video. On The Habit Coach, Ashton talks to Joe Town, Hollywood actor and coach of the performer's mindset. They decode various aspects of the high performer mindset and how to deal with mind blanking. On Press Decode, Sara Vagda and Prafulla discuss the controversy around Joe Rogan's Spotify podcast and Netflix India's growing woes. On The Longest Constitution, Priya discusses menstruation, maternity, and disability at the workplace. And on Ikaduka Economy, Abhinav and Dr. Junjunwala discuss the effects of rising inflation. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Also, please do tell a friend. It really does help us when you spread the word about our podcast. And I'd also like to ask you if you could rate or recommend wherever you listen to our podcast. And speaking of where you listen to this show, if you're on an Android phone, do check out our new Android app. We have a brand new app with a brand new listening experience. Definitely check it out. I think you will enjoy it. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda and CoinSwitch Kuber. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Namaste, this is Cyrus Brocha. I am part of the government cancel culture program to remove rubbish off all the different streams available. So what we have is all the collected rubbish we put together on our show. It's called Cyrus Says. It's on IVM Podcast. You have to watch it and listen to it. It's on our app. It's on our website. It's on the YouTube channel. It's on Facebook. There are many different ways. Don't bother me and ask me how. You have to find out. We talk to different personalities. Many of them are known. Some are just people we meet downstairs and invite them up for chai. But the point is, it's fun and it's very therapeutic. So please join in and listen to Cyrus Says.